It's All-Star time, the All-Star game 1 week from tomorrow. We already knew that Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan were starters for Jose Ramirez, sixth appearance in the All-Star game, and for Steven Kwan, his first. We were pretty safe in betting that Josh Naylor would make his first All-Star game, which he did yesterday, and that Emmanuel Clase would make his third All-Star game, which he did yesterday. The one thing that was kind of up in the air is, would David Fry grab a fifth and final spot for the Guardians? And the answer is yes. Cool video in the locker room, the clubhouse yesterday, where they announced that David Fry made the All-Star team, and the guys went crazy. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, Zach. We thought it could go either way. I'm really excited for David Fry that he made the All-Star team.
So there's a guy who plays for the Brewers. He's a pitcher. And in 11 appearances, he's gone 13 and 2/3 innings, 13 runs, 20 hits, 8 walks, 14 strikeouts. That's an 8.56 ERA. This is over 2 different seasons, 2022 and 2023.
Yeah.
And he has not pitched this year. And the reason he has not pitched this year is because he's serving a suspension. He already served an 80-game suspension. Now he's serving a 162-game suspension for performance enhancers. His name, John Carlos Mejia.
Mm-hmm.
And you might remember him from the traumatic 2021 season when he was just as bad for Cleveland. And they were so desperate for starting pitching that he made 11 starts for them, had an 8.25 ERA. It was brutal.
Nice.
Somehow after that season, Cleveland's front office was able to flip him to Milwaukee for a player to be named later. Now, that player to be named later was only a player to be named later because there was the lockout and no one knew if there was going to be a Rule 5 draft. So they had their sights set on David Fry, but they didn't know if David Fry would be taken in the Rule 5 draft. He was eligible. It was too late to protect him from Cleveland's standpoint if they would have traded for him. So they said the agreement was if there's a Rule 5 draft and he gets taken, we'll pick someone else. If he doesn't get taken, it'll be Fry. 99-day lockout happens. It ends. Everyone rushes to spring training immediately, but Fry was just in Brewers minor league camp, which he was old. Like the guy didn't have much of a future because he was kind of versatile, but versatile more so because he wasn't great at any position. Like no one knew if he could really hit. He chased a ton, and that's always a telltale sign. Like that's why Bobby Bradley is playing for the team that plays against the Savannah Bananas. So what happens is Fry goes to minor league camp with the Brewers. It's like mid or late March. And the first day he's there, he's catching a bullpen session for a pitcher. And someone from the Brewers comes and taps him on the shoulder. And they're like, hey, man, we got to talk. We're trading you to Cleveland. And he's like, oh, okay. You're telling me that now on the first day? And the guy's like, well, we've kind of known this was in the works for a few months, but we weren't able to tell you because of the lockout. And he's like, okay, whatever. And he goes to Cleveland. The rest is history.
Yeah.
Nobody involved in that trade, not even David Fry, who joked that he would have guessed he'd be a AAA All-Star, not a Major League All-Star.
Yeah.
No one foresaw this, but it shows you like you never really know what players are going to become. You make a trade, anything can happen. And that's one that you look back on. And the guy the Guardians gave away can't stop taking steroids and getting busted for it. And the guy they got is now an all-star. And it's unbelievable. You know, even a couple months ago, we wouldn't have predicted this. So it's a cool story. It's a cool journey for him. And he's been instrumental to what the Guardians have done. You know, it's the offense that's in the bullpen too, but the offense has really carried this team. And him lurking behind Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor as a right-handed threat has really transformed the lineup.
There's no doubt about it. It's a great story, Zach. I'm sure most of our fans didn't know about it, like all the details. And every year, there are some surprise all-stars. But this is an extreme example. Things like this don't happen that often. Yeah, there are guys who are decent players, and then they kind of bust out and have a great year. But this is completely out of left field. Like, you could have given me a list of – you could have said to me, pick 100 major league players that have never been all-stars before that you think could make their first all-star game. And I would have picked a number of Guardians before, let alone other teams, before I would have picked David Fry. It would never have occurred to me to pick David Fry to be an all-star, beyond the fact that, he hadn't done much, he hadn't played much. But as you said, he didn't have a position. And it's an interesting point. Some guys become utility guys because they can play a lot of good positions well. It wasn't like, oh, this guy came up because he's a great defensive player and can play all these positions at a high level. And it was more like, can we find a spot for him? Can he hit? Is he worth trying here? Is he worth trying there? And what he's become is an extremely valuable member of this team. And the Guardians are not where they are without him. I don't think there's any doubt about it, because there have been times, especially early in the season, like in April when Josh Naylor was hitting and not too many other guys, Fry was hitting. And then when Naylor cooled off and Ramirez got hot, Fry was hitting. Now he's cooled off himself recently, but they needed him a lot, especially in the first 2 months of the season, and he delivered time and time again.
Let's take it a step further. This offense was putrid last season. They were 27th in the league in runs scored. We've talked about how it doesn't even do it justice to call them last in the league in home runs because they were so far behind the team that ranked second last. 4 of the first 5 hitters in their lineup are all-stars. I mean, that's hard to wrap your head around like that. Yeah. We're talking like you're comparing, they have 5 all-stars. It's the first time they've had that many since 2018. And a lot of the teams that had 5 all-stars, you're looking at those 90s teams. You're looking at the run where it was Lindor and Ramirez and then a few of their starting pitchers who were so good, or Andrew Miller. And it's like, so we're comparing this team to those teams, but we're comparing this team to the 90s teams because it's the 90s teams that sent 4 or 5 hitters every year. It's crazy to compare this lineup to I don't know. I mean, it's easy to look back now and say, well, you had Albert Bella, Manny Ramirez, and Jim. Those are Hall of Famers. Those are the scariest dudes you could ever face. And you don't get that feeling when you're thinking about this lineup. But I mean, 4 all-stars in the top 5 of your lineup is insane. No, who would have predicted that?
No chance. No chance. We would not have had Fry as an all-star. Nobody would have picked Stephen Kwan as an all-star. No way. He didn't even hit 300 last year. And so, why would he be an all-star? He didn't hit 300. And what else does he do? He's a good fielder. We know what he does, but there was nothing all-star worthy about him going into this year. And then, certainly Naylor had a chance to make it last year. He was kind of borderline. So you thought, but out of these guys, the only one you thought for sure was an all-star was Jose Ramirez. That's it.
And I think it's cool the way these guys got voted into. The fans obviously have taken notice of what Stephen Kwan has done this year and what Jose Ramirez does every year. But Naylor and Fry were voted in by their peers. It's not like the league had to scramble and say, oh, we need one more hitter. Let's give it to David Fry. It's not like this wasn't a team that needed an all-star and you couldn't find one. So you went with the utility guy who's hit 300.
Yeah.
No, these guys were voted in by their peers. And I think that says something where other teams have taken notice. And I'm sure other pitchers have taken notice of just how irritating it is to try to get through the top half of this lineup.